Hello ladies and gentlemen. Now today I'm going to actually be talking to you guys about ancient mythology and what they believed on the solar and lunar eclipse. Now you guys are probably wondering why I'm doing this. Well, since technically recently the US actually has its its eclipse that came through. Now, though, I'm going to be talking to you guys about ancient mythology and not modern. Now, this will comprise of ancient Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, but as well Roman and Greek mythology, Celtic, Persian, and so on. Okay, for starters, let's talk on, well, technically the Bible. Now, you guys are probably going to say, oh yeah, when it comes to the Bible, this and that, such and such, and in which it doesn't say anything about eclipses. Actually it does. In which ancient Christianity, Islam, and even Judaism have stated that when it comes to the eclipse, it's technically a gateway opening for, well, darkness. In which doesn't make any sense, I know, but ancient religions of the modern era, because technically nowadays Christianity, Islam, and Judaism doesn't believe this anymore, but back then they kind of did a lot more than they do today. Let's go to the Greek and Roman ideology. What did they believe on the eclipse? Well, this is probably kind of the same as Christianity. They kind of believe it's a form of spirits coming through. But as well, whenever they see, like, say, the sun being darkened by the moon, the ancient Greek and Roman mythology have stated that when it comes to this, it's stated that Hades has technically overpowered the gods in battle. In doing so, there's a great battle in the heavens, so pretty much yada yada yada. In which, yes, sounds kind of like an ancient Greek mythology, but this is the thing about it. Only 50% believed in this. The 50% that believed in this were kind of, what's the term I should say, priests. The other 50% is actually of, they believe, well, how should I put this, kind of the same way, but not in the same way. They believed that when it came to this idea, that they had to establish a coronation with the same way. But they believed in a different idea. Such as, for example, say like if you were to go to, like, say, ancient Greek this today, technically it's stated that the 150%, this other 50% believed that technically, well, how should I put this? They viewed, like, when it came to this form of history, this type of mythology, they stated that if there was ever an eclipse, it's stated that the technically Zeus would have actually covered his eyes in mourning. Which, we don't know what that means, but we do know that the sun god, the one who rides the chariot around the globe, ended up having to lose a son. In doing so, Zeus loved this child so much that he kind of found favor with them, in which every day when it came to this, there would always be the eclipse whenever he would show the form of mourning. Now, let's start also with the Celtic. Now, in ancient Celtic mythology, it gets a little bit more simple. You guys might want to know what it's a little bit more simple. Well, here's the thing. The Celts had both a sun god, known as Elu, and the moon goddess, and which is known by many names in ancient Celtic mythology, which is kind of hard to say which one it is, but it's actually stated that the correct pronunciation of her would actually be, and now I don't even know if I'm misspelling this or not, but it's called Arianahud. Irinahud. It's very difficult to pronounce. Anyways, she was technically the goddess of the moon and the stars, in which her name means actually silver wheel, or the wheel of fate, in which, here's the thing about her and Lu. She and Lu were kind of like the opposites well, pretty much the opposites, like, well, converging on one another. In other words, how should I put this? If any of you guys are kids and stuff, yeah, you might want to cover your ears for this part, but anyways, it's like pretty much whenever there would be the ancient Celts stated whenever there would be an eclipse, it's stated that Lu and Arianhud would technically be mating, having sex, or, well, you get the whole point. In fact, Lu was technically always in the light, because technically he's the sun god. The same could be said about Arianahud. She was technically the goddess of the moon, in which, yeah, this is probably the part she always lived in darkness, in which she wanted to know more about her opposite. The same can be said about Lu. Lu and Arianahud are kind of, well, as soon as they found each other one time, they actually fell in love, and in doing so, it stayed an entire month. There was a giant eclipse over the world. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but this is an ancient Celtic folklore. An ancient druid stated that the gods ordered and demanded that they can't do this every day. So, what did they decide to do? They decided to allow them only to do it once in a few lifetimes. Meaning, such as the eclipse. In fact, the ancient Celtic druids stated that whenever there would be an eclipse, that's technically when Lu and Arianahud would technically be, well, mating, so to speak. In which kind of is like the forbidden romance that we normally hear in Greek mythology. But this is in Celtic, which is very, very surprising to actually hear about this, actually. But here's the problem about these two lovers. It's stated that when there would ever be an eclipse, and if you were technically to be born on that day of the eclipse, then technically it would either be a child of Arianahud or a child of Lu. In which we could probably see that in the tale of Cuchulainn, which is an ancient Irish folklore. But now that's a different tale from another time. But now you guys are probably wondering, wait, how do you tell if it's from Lu or if it's from Arianahud? Well, it's actually stated that if you were, say, to have a birthday on the eclipse, technically, you'd be a child of Arianahud. But if you were supposedly, if a mother gave birth on that day, then her child would be a child of Lu. Which, yes, it's kind of surprising, but true in the same way. Okay. Now, here's one of ancient Norse mythology. The Norse believed that this one was technically of how Odin looked over all of his children. In which kind of has the same thing with the ancient Celts with the birthday. For example, say like there was an eclipse, right? Like pretty much just a while ago. Whenever there is an eclipse, it's technically stated that Odin's eye, this is like his dead eye, and it opens up, and in doing so, it provides knowledge onto the user. Such as if you were born on that day, or technically if this is your birthday, then technically this is the moment you would actually be born with knowledge. That you would get knowledge more than you ever had. It's hard to say whether or not that's true or not, but it's technically ancient mythology, so yeah. Now, let's go into Native American detail. Now, I'm not going to include the Aztecs or Maya because pretty much people know about that part a little bit too much. But now, let's go into the ancient story of the Native Americans, in which believed that Mother Earth is pretty much created by the woman, in which is a goddess and so on, yada yada yada. In fact, you could probably look this up in an Assassin's Creed video game called Assassin's Creed Rogue, which technically gets the story very well. Now, though, it's stated that one of the sons of the goddess ended up, taking her eyes and placing them in the sky. One of them would be the moon, one of them would be the sun. Now, every time when the eclipse would form, the Native Americans would have this so-called ritual, in which is stated to drive off the evil. Now, for example, say this is technically like a battle between good and evil. The sun being the good side and the moon being the evil side. Because there were two suns, as I was going to pronounce. There was good and there was evil. Now, the good son ended up laying his mother to rest while the evil son had been defeated. It's almost like the tale of the beginning of the Bible, almost. But it's complicated. But now, the thing about this part is that once the history about this ancient story had been complete, it stated that a bunch of Native Americans had even documented on when this would have happened. Now, it's actually stated that when the document had been fulfilled, or so-called document had been fulfilled, you get the point. It stated that there was actually stated that the sun would battle against the moon, in which good fights against evil, light fights against darkness. And pretty much, if there's a solar eclipse, then technically that's when when light's fighting against darkness, when it's defending itself against darkness. But if there's a lunar eclipse, then technically the light is attacking darkness. Which, yeah, it makes a little bit more sense in Native American terms, which a lot of Native Americans still believe this to this day, if you ask me. Now then, let's go into ancient Egyptian culture. The ancient Egyptians believed in a form of ancient gods. Now, it's stated that the sun goddess known as Isis. Yes, don't confuse that with the terrorist group. I know, weird. Anyways, she was technically a powerful Asian goddess who pretty much was technically in control of both the sun and moon. Now, here's the thing about her. She technically mourned her husband. She mourned her descendants. In doing so, she wanted to make sure that her descendants would be remembered in each year. Or so I'm told. But it's stated that as soon as Isis pretty much... Well, let's put this. The reason Isis divided the moon and the sun is ordered to make sure that there be life once more. But it's stated that if the moon and the sun were ever to come together, then that means that there will be a child that will be born on that day that would destroy the life of the empire, of the kingdom. Now, we don't even know what that technically means, like technically if it means Antichrist or if it means a dictator. It's complicated, but technically it has stated that children that were born on that day in ancient Egypt, whenever there would be an eclipse, it's stated that the so-called theory might have actually came true. In fact, there have been some Egyptian leaders who led their people and ended up destroying Egypt in the process. Which, yeah, wasn't very... It was weird at first, but until people started looking at it, then they understood it. It's better for you guys to look this part up for yourself, because the history behind it is somewhat difficult to understand. And lastly, but not least, about the Yin and Yang. Now, in ancient Asia, they believed about this part. It's stated that when ancient Asians had first invented this idea with Buddhism and had adopted it, it's stated that the Egyptians technically theorized that both yin and yang, moon and sun, light and darkness, battled for the sake of mankind. In fact, this is kind of the weird part about ancient Asia. They believed that when the sun was out, there would be more, technically more good in the world. But when there would be darkness, such as at night, there would be more evil in the world. Now, when there was an eclipse, technically it's stated they believed that they were battling out on what was to come next. Now that actually does sound familiar in a lot of other cultures. But it's still unknown whether or not it's true in the first place. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you liked this episode. If I missed any of the cultures, let me know down in the comments below. And as well, if you guys want me to talk anything more about the so-called forms in the mythology, also let me know in the comments below. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, have a good day.